Welcome back. As you can see, for demonstration purposes, I've added a bunch of tiles to my country estate. I've added a bunch of cards to my hand, my discard pile. I've added some VP cards and so forth. This is a pretty unlikely, if not impossible, combination of circumstances, but that's beside the point. I want to actually start with your hand of cards and your discard pile, actually. I'm currently holding a total of 13 cards in my hand. When you have more cards than can fit on the screen, black bars appear on the right-hand side or the left-hand side or both to indicate that there are more cards to be seen in that particular direction. And if you hover your mouse over a black bar, you'll be shown a tooltip that informs you exactly as to the total number of guests you're holding in your hand. So if I come down here and hover over this black bar on the right, my program is telling me I'm holding 13 cards in my hand, 7 gentlemen and 6 ladies. If I click the right bar, I'll see the next card to the right, and all my other cards will shift left. Of course, the first card in my hand is now off the screen in this direction, and now I have a bar on the left side as well, so I can go back that direction or go forward again until I reach the end, and then I can go back this way. There are 4 buttons here that control the sorting of cards in your hand. Probably the most important one is the first one. It sorts by prestige rating from highest to lowest. When you have a lot of cards in your hand, it's very useful later in the game when you want to select some of your best guests, say for a large dinner, or if you want to check which of your best cards have been discarded. If you're holding a Fairchild, Charles or Elizabeth in your hand or discard pile, they're treated as having the highest possible prestige rating, and they'll always display in the leftmost or top position in the case of the discard pile. Family members are treated as having a prestige rating of 0, so when you're sorting from highest to lowest, they'll be displayed in the rightmost or bottommost positions. So if I click this first button now, you can see that Elizabeth Fairchild is first, followed by my highest PR rated cards. I've got 2 6s, 2 5s, a 4, and then a bunch of 1s. And if I go over in this direction, I'm going to hit my family. I've got 3 family cards here. Similarly, in my discard pile, I also happen to have Charles Fairchild. Again, that's near impossible to have both Charles and Elizabeth in your hand. There is one promo card that lets you do that. Because I'm sorting highest to lowest, Charles comes in first, then a PR6 card, Carol, Duke of Hazleton, Carolyn Abernathy, PR3, Ken Crawley, PR2, Roger Benton, PR1, Walter Dalrymple, another PR1, that was what my starter that I used in round 1, and the mother of my family, Mabel, Countess of Ponsonby. If I use the second button here to sort, I'm basically sorting from lowest PR rating to highest. This is useful when you have a large hand of cards and you want your family members displayed first. I'm going to go ahead and click this. Notice that Elizabeth Fairchild is still displayed first, and in the case of the discard pile, Charles Fairchild is displayed first. So the Fairchilds, the 2 Fairchilds, will always appear in the leftmost position, whether you're sorting highest to lowest or PR rating lowest to highest. In the discard pile, Charles is followed by the mother, Mabel, who was last before when I was sorting from highest to lowest. Here's Elizabeth in the leftmost position of my hand, followed by my father, my daughter, and my son. Then we have some PR1 cards, PR4, PR5, a couple more, a couple 6s, and we're at the end of the list. The V key allows you to sort by victory points. This is especially useful if you have a lot of cards in your hand or discard pile and you want to dismiss someone with negative VP. So the people with negative VP are going to appear in the farthest left position or the topmost position in the case of the discard pile. So now if I click this button to sort by VP, you can see over here that Ann Hawkins comes up first with -3. And in the case of my discard pile, Roger Viscount Benton with -2, Colonel Dalrymple with 0, and so forth. Of course, Charles has VP of 8, as does Elizabeth, so they are going to be at the end of the list. Lastly, the G key allows me to sort by gender. I can left-click to sort males and then females, like so. Or I could right-click to sort by females followed by males. Let's go back to sorting from highest to lowest. If I come over here, let's say I'm inviting, I don't know, Elizabeth and Richard, Duke of Longford. Of course, I can't because I don't have a high enough reputation, and my program is warning me about that, but that's all right. I'm not going to actually host an activity. I just want to demonstrate something here. So I've invited both of these guests. You can see they automatically get the servants that they require. Let's say I wanted to pair my daughter with Richard, Duke of Longford to get the admirer bonus. Now, you know, she's all the way over to the right because we're sorting high to low. The easiest way to get to the end of the list in a particular direction is to double click on the black bar. So if I double click this black bar on the right, it takes me all the way to the end of the list. So I can see my father, here's my daughter, here's my son. That's easier than just clicking, especially if you have 15 or 16 or more cards in your hand. Of course, double clicking on the left bar takes me to the front of the list. I want to go back to the back of the list to find my daughter, and let's invite her as well for that admirer bonus. Now you can see that the other guests that I invited are off the screen over on the left. When my program detects that all the invited guests are not showing on the screen at once, it reorders things so that all the invitees are sorted together. So if I invite the daughter, Lady Margaret Carlo, she immediately shifts all the way over to the left so that now I can see who my 3 invited guests happen to be, and the sorting doesn't affect that. Even if I sort highest PR to lowest PR again, it's going to make sure that the marked cards, the ones that I've invited, are all kept on the left-hand side so I can see them together. Now, of course, you're also holding a hand of objective cards. There are 2 buttons here that control which of your hands is displayed. So you could either click hand or hit the H key on your keyboard to toggle the display of your hand, or you could click the objectives button or hit O to toggle your objectives. Now, because my hand is displayed right now, if I click hand, it's going to just make the hand go away. It hides the hand completely, which can be useful in this case because I have one long column of tiles in one of my categories. I can click objectives and toggle that as well, or I could just simply go back and forth. Again, I can use H and O as well to do the same thing on my keyboard, H and O. Similarly, you can right-click a card in your hand or an objective card to toggle back and forth between your hand and your objectives. So if I right-click any one of these cards, I display my objectives instead. Right-click again, I go back to my hand. So that just toggles back and forth. So you have lots of ways to choose between which hand you're viewing. You could either press the keys on the keyboard, H and O, you can click hand and objectives, or you can just simply right-click to toggle between the 2. You can reorder the cards in your hand by control clicking and dragging. That's particularly useful when you want to group your objectives by type. So you can see I have 2 prestige related objectives here. If I control click and drag this card, I can drop it here and it will appear to the left of that card, so those 2 are together. I can control click and drag this card and drop it here and it will appear to the right of the card I drop it on. So when you're dragging to the right, it appears to the right of the card you're dropping it on. If you're dragging it to the left, it appears to the left of the card you're dropping it on. So if I drop that there, I now have my two servant-related objectives together, my two prestige-related objectives together, and maybe I want this one with the other tile-based objectives. I can reorganize cards in my hand. I can drag him over there if I really wanted to, and I can drag him over there. But the truth of the matter is, as soon as you use one of these buttons to resort, it's just going to override that. So reordering the cards in your hand, useful, I guess, temporarily, if you want to compare two cards, for example, side by side. But otherwise, control clicking and dragging is best used with objective cards. VP cards show up in this window over here. You can click one to just display it. If you actually want to redeem one of these, you just simply double click. So if I double click on 300 pounds, I'll lose that VP card, but I'll gain 300 pounds and I'll jump from 0 to 300. Finally, I'm going to hide my hand here by hitting the H key on my keyboard. And I want to focus your attention now on all the tiles here I have in my prestige column. This is pretty unlikely to have this many tiles in one column of your organizer, but it's possible. As you can see, I've collected 6 prestige tiles. Of course, only 5 of them are displaying on the screen, and they're sorted in prestige rating order from lowest to highest. If I want to see a tile that's off the screen, or simply later in the game I want a certain column to sort from highest to lowest, because again, usually you want to go for your highest rated tiles, you just have to click this little checkbox in the corner of that column, and it will change the order so that it sorts in descending order instead of ascending order. Anytime you've got 5 or 6 tiles in a column, the number of tiles is going to show up in the bottom left corner. So just clicking this is going to toggle back and forth between sorting in ascending order or sorting in descending order. That applies to sporting, prestige, estate, and essentials, but service is handled differently. The service column organizes its tiles so that the tiles you really need to see are toward the top, and the tiles that are less important are near the bottom. So for example, the butler's room has been moved to the bottom, and my servant's quarters is at the top, so I can quickly see at a glance that I've got a servant's quarters available to me, and I can see what its ability is. I've added the carriage house to my service column. As you can see, that's sorted first. That's because you can drop a servant on this tile to gain its benefit. I can put a footman on the carriage house in order to increase or decrease my guest count by 1. So since I have both the servants' quarters and the carriage house, I can take my footman from the servants' quarters. Oh, I can't because I've already used servants' quarters, probably for this valet. Yeah, let me uninvite the Duke just so I can get back to servants' quarters again. So now I can take my footman, drag it on top of the carriage house. Now I can increase my guest count or decrease my guest count by 1. If I change the order of the service column, that's something you probably don't want to do, but it's again just simply going to reverse the order. So it's going to move all the tiles that you want to see toward the bottom and all the tiles that you really don't need to see on the top. So it just puts the butler's room at the top and the carriage house at the bottom, which is not terribly useful, especially if you get a number of different tiles that you can drop servants on. You really want those visible so you don't have to be doing any special sleight of hand in order to drag and drop a servant onto a certain tile. For instance, I just added the laundry, which is a promotional tile. It allows you to place a female servant on the tile in order to refresh a casual guest of your choice. So for instance, I can't take my butler, he's a male, I can't drop him, but I could drag and drop the housekeeper on the laundry if I really wanted to, just to refresh one of my casual guests. In that case, I'm asked to double-click the casual guest card in my discard pile that I want to add back to my hand. Bring back Colonel Walter Dalrymple. Just double-click him. He's left my discard pile, and he's returned to my hand of cards over here on the far right. Now my housekeeper is residing here. Of course, I'll get these servants back at the end of my turn. And that's all I really wanted to talk about in this particular video. In the next video, I'm going to be discussing all the different boards and screens and displays you can view in the program. Thanks for watching.